Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of NoDQ&A video right here on NoDQ.com and the YouTube channel, youtube.com/NoDQCW. The year 2012 is almost over. We survived the Mayan Armageddon, whatever it was, the 12/21. Hope you all had a good holiday, whatever you celebrate. We got New Year's coming up. Not a whole lot going on in wrestling right now. Things are pretty much at a standstill until the first Raw of the new year with Ryback versus CM Punk TLC and The Rock coming back. But I'm still getting questions. People are still sending in questions. So no DQ&A video continues. On that note, let's get right down to it. This first one comes from Nick Made Visible. What are your thoughts on Hulk Hogan wanting to be world champion in 2013? Hulk Hogan did this interview recently, and he was asked about what his Christmas wishes would be. And Hogan said he would like to have knee surgery and then go on to have a run at the TNA World Title. And this got the internet buzzing. This got people, this ruffled feathers, and this got people all worked up. And a lot of negative feedback to that. I'm sure it's just Hulk Hogan saying something that will draw attention. You know, Hulk Hogan's all about publicity and trying to get people talking. I really don't think that that's a realistic possibility, him being TNA World Champion again. Not just because of the injuries, but I really do feel that Hogan himself knows it would be a bad idea, that it would devalue the title and people would not be happy about it. But then again, I would not put anything past TNA. And here I go bashing TNA again, as I am known for apparently. But, you know, I could see somebody in TNA bringing up the idea of Hulk Hogan having one last run as TNA champion. Not really a run, but maybe winning it and then forfeiting it, or, you know, just a brief title run. I could see somebody in TNA thinking that would be a good idea. But I just don't think that it will happen. I think that people will have some common sense and realize that it's not a good idea and you need to focus on the young talent. And it's not worth the nostalgia pop to have him win the title and then devalue the title and just get everybody pissed off. So I don't think it'll happen. Alright, this one comes from WWE Big Fan. In his milestone career, who do you think had the best feuds and matches with John Cena? And then he goes on to list a bunch of names. You mentioned Edge here. John Cena and Edge had a lot of great matches. They had the TLC match at Unforgiven 2006. Edge was one of those guys that really brought out the best in John Cena. So I would say John Cena and Edge was a great feud for John Cena. And also Randy Orton. I think that feud dragged on a bit too long. I think they had something like 5 straight pay-per-views against each other with some ridiculous figure. But the two of them had some classic matches. They had Iron Man matches, Hell in a Cell matches, No Holds Barred matches. So there was a great feud there between those two. And of course The Rock, you know, their feud is very memorable because of the star power and them facing each other at WrestleMania. So those would be John Cena's most memorable feuds, I think. Hey Aaron, I was recently watching a match from 2004 in which JR referred to the World Heavyweight title as being the, quote, biggest title in the business, end quote. What changed between then and now to make the WWE title so much more valued than the World title? This is a pretty straightforward answer. Number one, the World title was on Raw, and Raw was the A show. So by default, that makes the World title the main title. And the other big reason is that when Triple H is the World Champion or competing for the World Championship, that right there makes it the #1 title. I think once John Cena switched over to Raw and brought the WWE title over there, that's when the WWE title started to become the #1 title again. So a lot of it had to do with Raw and then, of course, Triple H. Alright, this one comes from Nikki StirZU. Do you see Bret Hart returning in the ring someday, maybe at the Royal Rumble, at least for a few minutes in the match? This question goes back to the Hulk Hogan question earlier. Could Bret Hart come back and wrestle? You know, not really wrestle, but do a few moves? Sure he could, but it's just not a good idea. Bret Hart had his big comeback, and you know, the match with Vince was somewhat of a disaster. But you know, he did have his moments. Bret Hart had his moments. You know, he came out at SummerSlam in 2010 and it was part of a that 10-man tag team match, and he had a few moments, but it's done. Bret Hart came back, had his run, had his comeback. Just let it be. No point in bringing him back, and there's no good reason to have him come back and risk something happening to him. With Jerry Lawler's heart attack, I think Lawler's heart attack is going to be a wake-up call, not just to WWE, but TNA as well. You don't want to put these guys that are pushing 60 or past 60, you don't want to put them in the ring and risk something happening to them. Hulk Hogan, Bret Hart, Ric Flair, these guys don't belong in the ring anymore, at least, in a physical capacity. They can come out, cut a promo, whatever, but just keep them, don't have them get physical. Just not a good idea. If Lex Luger had worn regular tights in the WWF like he had in WCW, armbands, had longer hair, and used the torture rack, no USA stuff, how successful would have he been in WWF? I think he would have been a lot better, definitely WWE champion, or WWF champion. What Lex Luger was wearing had absolutely nothing to do with how over he got or how much he was pushed. Don't want to try to sound like a jerk here, but there's a saying that you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. And nothing against Lex Luger, but the guy was limited, and I really feel that WWE did the absolute best they could in terms of trying to market him and make him something special. I do think that WWE gets some of the blame for Luger not getting as far as he could have. I think part of the problem was the SummerSlam match where they did that cheap finish. They did the count out. I really think that took the wind out of the sails, and that really hurt Lex Luger's momentum. He had a lot of momentum going into that match, and I just remember such a negative reaction to that finish. The big pay-per-view, and Luger did not get the title. WWE did not pull the trigger. I think that WWE should have given him the title and tried to give him that opportunity and see where things went, but they didn't do it, and Luger never really recovered from that. He lost all that momentum, and a lot of it was WWE's fault, and some of the blame has to go on Luger. There was just so far he was going to go. He had the body and the physical presence, but just wasn't that good in the ring, and not the best promo in the world. So yeah, he was only going to go so far, regardless of how hard he was pushed. But the clothing really didn't have anything to do with it. Why did WWF not use Nitro as part of the Invasion storyline? Have WCW win a match to turn Raw into Nitro for a temporary basis till WWF won Survivor Series to restore Raw. Whatever plans WWE had regarding WCW, maybe bringing back Nitro or having WCW air its own show in addition to Raw, all that went out the window after that Raw where Booker T faced Buff Bagwell. I mean, that match pretty much killed the idea of WCW having a big run on its own, and that it got such a negative reaction from the crowd. They were totally dead for that match, and pretty much everyone felt it was a complete disaster. And at that point, WWE scrapped whatever plans they had, and they brought back ECW and did the whole alliance storyline. So everything got changed based on the reaction of that Booker T versus Buff Bagwell match. So I mean, it's really unfortunate too, because there was so much WWE could have done with the Invasion. They owned the rights to WCW, they owned the rights to Nitro. But yeah, I mean, they were having problems also trying to secure a time slot. I mean, WWE did try to get it another show for WCW, and Spike TV, TNN, whatever, they didn't budge. They wouldn't give them another time slot. So yeah, it's just an unfortunate situation, and certainly WWE could have handled it a lot better as well. This is from B Cruz 16. Hey Aaron, what do you think the WWE has planned for The Shield at WrestleMania? And also, do you think because of their success, they could change a match? For example, Triple H versus Lesnar involved The Shield with them. I really hope that WWE does something good with The Shield at WrestleMania. I think part of the problem for them is that you're going to have so many of the old main eventers returning, and they will be taking the spotlight. You know, The Rock, Undertaker, Triple H, Brock Lesnar, all these guys are going to be in the mix, and unfortunately the Shield's going to get pushed back a little bit. That's just the way it's going to be. But I do hope that WWE gives them some sort of key match at WrestleMania. Maybe they could do another big six-man match with 3 of the other big stars that don't have a match, put them in against the Shield and build that up. Hopefully the Shield has some sort of big role at WrestleMania. I think it's important for them to make an impact at the biggest pay-per-view of the year. I get people talking about them, but we'll just have to wait and see. You know, it's not a guarantee that they'll even have a spot on the card at this point. So we'll just have to wait and see what WWE does. Hey Aaron, you said that Edge was a transitional champion on NoDQ&A video number 233, but what about The Rock? He also had the title for a short period of time every time he won it. What's the difference between Edge as champion versus The Rock as champion? Yes, part of The Rock's title reigns were transitional. When The Rock first won the title at Survivor Series 98, you know, the plan was for Steve Austin to get the title back. You know, Steve Austin needed a heel champion that he could challenge at WrestleMania. So that was the whole point in The Rock winning the title. You know, the eventual plan would be for Austin to win it from The Rock. And you know, WWE did stick to that plan, and Austin beat The Rock at WrestleMania. But between Survivor Series and WrestleMania, you know, WWE was still competing with WCW, and they were trying to pop the ratings. You know, Russo was still there. So WWE was trying to do whatever it took to get the ratings up, and the title changes popped the ratings. So they had the feud with The Rock versus Mankind, and they switched the title around several times, and that was done to boost the ratings. So there were some differences. You know, one of The Rock's title reigns was transitional, or a couple of them, and you know, some of them were done for ratings. And you know, with Edge was never going to be the guy that was going to carry the company. With The Rock, you know, by 2000 when he won the title, obviously he was the #1 babyface, especially with Steve Austin out. So by that point, you know, it wasn't about being a transitional champion. The Rock was the guy that the company was building around. So that was the main difference between Rock and Edge. All right, that'll wrap it up for this edition of NoDQ&A video. Thanks as always for watching. Keep spreading the word. Post this video on Facebook, Twitter. Share it with your friends, anybody you know that watches wrestling. And stay tuned to NoDQ&A video, and stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest in WWE and TNA.